Hello everyone. I'm making this video today because, well, I feel like right now is the right time as any. And it's one of those things that I was questioning whether or not I wanted to actually do this. But I was inspired by Spud Gaming. I watched his story about mental health. And I feel like more than anything, especially now with everything going on in the world, that mental health is a very, very strong thing. And I feel like it's always been a thing that's been a part of our society that kind of just gets swept under the rug and not talked about as much. And that's really what's upsetting. And I thought it was only right to share my story. I know I have a couple times in bits and pieces throughout on my streams, but other than that, I haven't really done much. And I thought I'd do it today. Most of you know that I have a physical disability known as cerebral palsy, which means that the neurons in my brain do not work properly enough for my muscles to properly coordinate themselves to do what they are supposed to do. And I was very ambitious as a young boy. As a young kid, I'm talking like from elementary all the way up to like teenage years. I was like so ambitious, because I came from a school where being an athlete was more important than being smart and being well educated and just being a decent human being. A lot of people viewed that if you didn't have athletic skills, or you didn't have, for some reason you didn't have skills that the student body cared about, it didn't matter. If you didn't play football, hockey, whatever it was, you were a nobody. And I realize now that high school cred and middle school cred and school cred in general are all a bunch of baloney. But, that really got to me as a kid. Because a lot of people would call me names, a lot of things that I won't repeat just for the sake of, I'm a decent human being, I'd like to think. And, it was really difficult growing up because I didn't grow up with a father. My father had passed away when I was a very young boy, little baby. And his family on my dad's side just didn't really do anything to want to get in touch with me or support me whatsoever. And that really hurt me a lot of the years, and I think I've suffered from depression and anxiety since I was 9 years old, but I didn't really know what was going on with me. And I feel like as we go through this journey called life, we discover who we are over time. We become more aware of ourselves and more aware of other people and a bunch of other things like that. And I feel like it's the best way to get the fulfillment out of life is to experience things. And I feel like you get the most out of life by experiencing it. And my life is not meant to be a sob story. The biggest thing I would say that I had the biggest problem with growing up was that people would sympathize with me or feel sorry for me because they feel like they had to. Like when people see how I walk, or when people see that I'm struggling because of, my disability and the handicaps that I have because of that, they feel the need to say, oh, I feel sorry for you, or whatever. And I know that their heart probably comes in a good place. But it's difficult to just, I don't know, it's difficult to stomach it, in my opinion, because, you know, I don't ask for people to feel sorry for me. Like, I don't want people to. You know, because to me, what that sounds like is they're making it sound like, oh, I'm sorry you have that. That's horrible. You know, and they make it sound like it's the end of the world that I have this handicap and whatever. And I was labeled all my life. You know, I was labeled as the kid that was always going to work a desk job. And if that's you working at a desk job, I'm not saying that that's a horrible job, but they were using that as a way to label me and as a way to make it so that, well, quite frankly, that I was just labeled. And I let it get to me. A lot of times I would let it get to me because one of my teachers, I think it was my 7th grade teacher, one of my 7th grade teachers, had told the class this, and I still hold this saying today, and that is, if you tell a kid something at a very young age, doesn't matter what it is, and they're hearing it from multiple points of authority or multiple points meaning people, because kids' minds are easily manipulated, they are inclined to believe it until somebody shows them otherwise, or until they mature enough to realize it. So a lot of people told me, oh, you're just a kid with a cane, you're not going to do anything. You know, and that wasn't the worst thing that somebody's ever told me, to be fair. And, you know, this whole time I believed that I wasn't good enough for anything. I wasn't going to do anything. That, you know, I basically was stuck in the position that I'm stuck in without a way out, you know? And you may have been in my streams where I've said that I'm doing a domestic violence charity stream in October to celebrate Domestic Violence Awareness Month, to raise awareness of something that is a problem in our world today. Especially with the pandemic going on, cases are going up. And I did that not only because it's something I'm very passionate about, but it's because I was a victim of it. Now, I was a victim of relationship abuse, and I was in a very controlling relationship. My ex controlled every aspect of my life. Everything revolved around her, and she didn't care about my opinions. She didn't really give a shit about, you know, my opinions, my way of life, whatever. It just revolved around the both of us, meaning that, well, mostly her, but, you know, basically, my life outside of her didn't matter. You know, there was times where she would come to my house she would come to my house, I would be in my frickin' pajamas. And, you know, she would come to my house unannounced. And, you know, she would lie about the dumbest of things possible. And she told me basically who I could and couldn't talk to, including celebrities on Twitter. She was that threatened by a famous person. You know, which shows how insecure she was. She eventually dumped me by introducing me to her new boyfriend over the phone and telling me that she was done. And that was when I was 16. And I'm 21 now, and ever since then I've never been in a, like, committed real relationship. And the reason being is, you know, when you have a disability, my disability is something that I carry with me. It's almost like that annoying, little sibling you can't get to leave you alone. That's always around you all the time. And it's one annoyance that I'll never get rid of. Like, every day I think about, like, how, my life is. And I used to think, what if I didn't have this disability? Would people have treated me different? But the fact is that people are gonna find a way to make fun of you anyway. And I had to learn that over time. But let's get to a time where this whole story really takes a turn. And that was in 2017. I graduated high school. My prom date had used me for 2 years. And she played me like a chess pawn, for lack of a better simile or whatever comparison. And I was stuck. I was crushed by it. Because I'm one of those people that you can easily take advantage of. Because anybody that's got a good heart, anybody whose heart comes in a good place, I feel like they are the most susceptible to getting used and getting lied to and having their time wasted just by awful people, just by people that aren't good people. It's tough because you're trying to be a good person as much as you can, and that's what I try and do. I do it because there's not enough good people in this world, especially nowadays. There just isn't a lot of good people out there, and it sucks. Because you go on social media and you see so much hate and so much awful, stupid stuff, and it's terrible. And I try to be that light at the end of the tunnel for somebody. I try to be that nice person that gives that person a compliment. And I would do it for anybody, not just people that I happen to admire or are inspired by, but I do it to simply be a nice guy and just have just to make that person's day. And it's difficult to really put all of this into words, really. But in 2017 I hit rock bottom. I didn't know where to go. I feel like my anxiety and my depression was at its lowest point. Luckily it never got low to the really bad points. I'm just happy that it didn't get to that point. But I grew up in a very religious household, and I have a strong faith in God. And I was praying to Him every day that things would get better. And, I was talking to one of a really good friend of mine from school that I went to school with, and I was saying, out of these 4 years, from 2017 to 2020, I've had a lot of stuff happen to me, a lot of good things. And, I asked him, do you believe in that everything happens for a reason? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, honestly, man, I don't think that all of this is a coincidence. Based on what has happened to me. I mean, I went from rock bottom in 2017 to discovering one of my favorite bands of all time, Paris, and meeting them twice. Meeting them once later in 2017, and then once again in 2018, and I got a ticket for their show that unfortunately got postponed because of everything going on, but I'm going to meet them a third time. And I kept on thinking to myself throughout this whole thing, did God answer my prayers? Did he give me something that I was going to remember for the rest of my life because of how badly I was hurting and how badly I was dealing with things? And I always tell people that when I go out in public, people see me different. They look at me and they stare at me like something is wrong. And I know that because you can tell a lot about the way somebody looks at you. My communications teacher called it nonverbal cues. So you can kind of tell what a person is thinking by how they are presenting themselves to you. And so people would kind of look at me and be like, kind of their eyes would kind of be wide because they'd be like, why is this kid walking the way he is? And, a lot of people nowadays, they don't know how to ask properly. Like, I have no issue in talking about my disability, but when somebody gives me an awkward question that's just highly inappropriate, and the way that it's put is highly inappropriate, like, I am more willing to ask somebody who is actually curious and not gonna come up and ask me, why do you walk like that, or something like that, or whatever. It's all in how you ask things, and I think it's important that people realize that. And one of the things that I remember was, when meeting Paris for the first time, was rolling up in my wheelchair and seeing the lead singer Lynn, who you've heard me talk about multiple times on stream. She's the kind of person that she doesn't judge anybody. She's been openly lesbian for a long time. And, gay marriage is something that has grown to become more accepted as the years have gone on. And, I basically was talking to her kind of like, I'm not used to this kind of treatment. And she said, we don't judge people. That's not our job. Our job is to entertain people. And she kept asking me, did I have a good time? Did I have a good time? And I stood the whole entire show. And that's the longest I ever stood. I can't stand for long periods of time, but I stood for 2 hours. My knees were freaking sore and everything. But I did it because I wasn't gonna let something like my disability stop me from having fun. And Lynn got my wheelchair back from a drunk lady that was being stupid. But, it was the first time in my life that I didn't feel judged, that I didn't feel like people were staring at me because of my disability, because when I rolled up in that wheelchair to meet her, like, she looked directly at me and not down at me. She didn't like look me up and down and was like, oh, okay, and I'm the kind of person that notices a lot of things about people. I'm the kind of person that notices that reads people pretty well, and Lynn is one of those types of people that reads people pretty well too. Like, she even said in an interview that she's pretty good at it, and she's damn good at it. And, it's because of Paris and those 2 times that I've met them that I am in the place that I am in now, where I go to therapy now for anxiety. I go to therapy for depression. I'm getting help, and I'm being better. I'm getting better and helping myself, and trying to get myself in a better headspace. And if it weren't for Paris, I probably wouldn't have realized that. I got counseling in college, but really it was Paris that sparked everything. Because the first time I listened to their music, I was like, holy shit, this person gets how I feel. And, when I hit rock bottom in 2017, in the summer of that year, that was when Chester Bennington from Linkin Park passed away. And that hit me real hard because, you know, I felt like a best friend of mine died because he shared so many personal things through his music, and he wanted to help people. And it just really shocked me. It really hit me to the core that he felt the way that he did enough to where he felt like his life wasn't worth living anymore. And I was really upset. I was upset for him, and I was upset for myself because I was like, what am I doing? You know, I'm not talking to anyone. I'm hiding in my room all the time. You know, constantly just pushing everyone away and acting like nothing is wrong and all of that, you know? And I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. This is not something that I'm going to keep hiding. But my goal in those 2 times that I met Paris was I realized that Lynn was hurting too. And I wanted to talk with her and just kind of, you know, lift her spirits a little bit. And, you know, kind of explain to her that I get it, what she's going through. I get it. I 100% get it. And I feel like mental illness is one of those things that no matter how many times you study it, you don't get it unless you are going through it. And, you know, I feel like the most important message that I want to get out of this story is that there are people that will listen to you. There are people that will let you vent to them. There are people that care about you. There are people that want you to be alive, that want you to be here. And, you know, it's one of those things that I say that it's easier said than done. But telling somebody is a huge step to getting better. And, you know, I'd like to thank Spud, Slev86, the Real Fat Tony, everybody at Avenger Friends, everybody that's a part of my community. I'd like to thank Paris. I'd like to thank everyone that I've watched in professional wrestling that have given me a place to escape and a place to heal. And if I can do it, you can do it too. We're gonna fight together and we're gonna help each other. And that's what we're gonna do because that's what the world needs. We need each other to stand side by side and help and fight. Raise awareness of these issues and simply just stop acting like it doesn't happen. That it doesn't exist. That men don't cry. Or that, you know, any other stereotypical or any other stigma that you can put behind this. There are people out there that are hurting. There are people out there that need our help. And I feel that it is important for us to be there for one another. So I hope that this video today, even though it's quite a long one and it's totally different than what you're normally used to seeing, that you get the help that you need. Just like I did. Because trust me, the world is better with you here in it. Nobody should ever have to feel like their life is worthless, because it's not. You mean something to somebody. And simply reaching out and grabbing that person's hand and saying, I'm gonna help you, and I'm gonna be there for you, is all they need. So with that, I hope that you take this video and you learn from it, and you use it as another way to open the conversation, to change the world for the better, and most importantly, be better human beings to one another.